You see your players every single day, you work with them every single day. When you look at the whites of their eyes, what are you seeing?
Hunger. Hunger to win. That's it. To compete, to prepare, and to achieve the goal that we set at the start of the season.
The fans are likely to be kicking every ball and be on edge, if you like, until the end of the season. What would your message, with just a few games to go now, be to them?
Let's keep doing what we did all season and bring that energy, that passion, and together we're going to make it happen.
Just finally for me, Mikel, last week you talked about courage from your players. Is it now almost a test of nerve more than anything else from now to the end of the season?
It's a lot of factors. That's something that emotionally, for sure, we have to manage in the right way. But I would put the emphasis more on again, showing that desire, that determination, that hunger, that will that we've shown all season and even more, because we have only 4 games to play now and everything is at stake. So it doesn't get better than that.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Syria from the Premier League.
Hi, Mikel.
Hi.
Fulham have conceded more goals than anyone else in the first 15 minutes of the second half. Arsenal in the Premier League have scored the most in that time period, 14 goals. What's so sacred about that half-time for you, and why do you think it's been so successful for you to come out and keep going?
With the first thought is that we try to prepare and understand what happened in the first half and try to apply it immediately in the second half. There will be a lot of factors, I'm sure, to get those stats, and it's very positive. But what we want is throughout every 15-minute block of the game to have the ability to do that.
Marco Silva's Fulham, only 2 points of 6th place. They're having a very good season. What have you made of it? Because Arsenal have very good stats against Fulham, but it's never an easy game.
No, and I mean, it's a remarkable job what Marco is doing. I said it many times, in my opinion, he's one of the best managers in the league. The way he sets up his teams, what he's done for the club, it's incredible. So we know how tough it's going to be tomorrow.
And another stat for you, Saka, following a ball carry across the pitch, has the most shots, most chances created. Is that what you want to see overall more from your midfield and attack, instead of grabbing the ball, maybe passing back, passing to the side, pushing up a bit more?
Yes, and penetration is one of the words that we use the most, and taking players' initiative and making things happen. And through the passes, obviously, it's extremely difficult against teams that are so organized, so we need to find other ways, and that's the kind of thing that we're looking forward to.
Alex Dempsey.
Hi, Mikel. I know that Kai Havertz had a broken season, so how has that been for you to deal with through this whole campaign, having someone who's so key to you, and especially now with so many big games coming up?
It's been a huge miss. We're talking about one of the most important attacking players that we have, and he's been out for 7 or 8 months. He's not been the only one, unfortunately, with long-term injuries and players that we've been missed at. But the team has shown an incredible capacity to overcome these kind of scenarios and still be very, very competitive.
And in the summer, he has 2 years left on his contract, which traditionally is football is where a club extends, or potentially discussions about a player moving on. So how important is this end of this season and the World Cup for Kai Havertz going forward?
Now the focus has to be on availability and performance, and Kai is desperate to be on the pitch as quick as possible. He cannot do this game. Hopefully for Atletico he will be available, and he's pushing every boundary to achieve that, and there is no time to have these kind of discussions now.
Okay, you mentioned not being able to train much this week. Can I ask a little insight about what that's like between games when training is almost impossible? What does that week kind of become for you and the team?
Well, first of all, recovery, and then clarity on what we have to do, what we expect from the opponent, and especially what we have to do to take the game where we want it, to win it. And when you don't have much time on the pitch, you have to do it in other ways, other methods, a lot of collective messages, and especially a lot of individual meetings to achieve what we want on the pitch.
And just something on the structure of the midfield. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we've noticed that Declan's been kind of dropping a bit deeper than Martin recently. Martin's kind of been pushing up a little bit more and doing more in the final third. What's been kind of behind that change and the benefits that it brings?
Well, every opponent has his things, and we believe in the last game that it was the best thing to do to hurt them, to find spaces, time, and surprise them with certain movements and in relation to the opponent. We can change that, and to have the variability and the options to do that with our midfielders, I think is something positive for the team.
Back from the standard.
And we've got another one on Rice. You obviously did give him maybe a slightly deeper role against Atletico the other day. How impressed, I guess, were you with how he performed and I guess his mentality to drive the team forward there?
Well, I mean, what we need is players that can occupy any position on the field. I mean, modern football, I think, is going in that direction. When you are a midfielder, you are a midfield, you're not a 6, an 8 or a 10. I think if we want a total team, we better have total players to do that, to be so comfortable, to be dominant in any area of the pitch, to dominate every phase of play, and Declan certainly is evolving into that direction.
And when it comes to player of the season, he's obviously one of those in the running for that, probably someone like Bruno Fernandes too. How important do you think performing in multiple competitions every few days in Europe should be when it comes to those kind of awards?
Well, what Declan is doing again, it's incredible. I mean, to play the amount of games minutes with the quality that he's shown in every game is something extremely difficult to do. And he's doing it not only this season, but the last few seasons that he's been with us. And to show that level of consistency is extremely rare because the demands and the standards are very, very high.
James, Athletic.
Hi, Mikel.
Hi.
I want to ask you quickly about Eze. We've heard you talk a lot in recent weeks about the beauty of the challenge in front of you, the need for your players to enjoy it and enjoy these moments. It feels like very few players embody that more than him. It feels like he plays the same way if it's a pre-season friendly or a Champions League semi-final. Is that one of his most special qualities?
I think so. I think it's part of his character, and he has a unique way of expressing himself. Inside, none of us know how he's feeling, but what he actually transmits to the world outside is such a security and calmness and composure in every situation on the field.
And is that something you think he can transmit to his teammates as well?
He does, and especially the way he talks and connects with people. It's very much like that, and I think that's something special. I think we need players like that. We need players that can have a different kind of presence on the pitch and body language and bring something else that I think it's unique and very powerful for us.
There's a school of thought that European football might affect your decision on next season and the future. Is that accurate?
Nothing is going to affect or not affect. Is a decision that is going to be I'm going to take, the club is going to take as well, and we together we are going to take, and many things are there. Is not being because we are going to achieve something or not that is going to be the decisive situation for us. Many things are there.
So fresh from their Champions League trip to Madrid in midweek, Arsenal have a chance to go 6 clear at the top, but this is a tough one for them against a London rival.
It's a little bit uncomfortable, and I think also because Fulham can be excellent. I think that's been the question mark of them. They've not consistently been able to have those levels, but when Fulham are at their best, Harry Wilson's been an absolute revelation this season, incredible for them. But when their attacking players play well, they can really cause teams problems. And they can control large phases of the game. They play good football. For Arsenal, there's a bit of pressure. You're in between these 2 Champions League games that also carry great weight. Sometimes the game in between that, sometimes it becomes a game you're not quite fully focused on because you're human. You've got fatigue. You've got excitement, nerves, all these things. So it's a bit of a nervy one, I think, for Arsenal. And it's one that, as you say, they have to get 3 points.
Yeah, which Arsenal game has not been nervy of late? I mean, just think about the Newcastle game where they huffed and puffed their way to 1-0. They got the early goal, but then it was nervy at the end, and Wissa missing was probably lucky for them.
We talk about it now quite often, don't we? And that question will always come up with Arsenal until they get the job done. Will they get to the line this year? And there is a lot of nervousness, especially when they play at home. You see that. I'm not so sure that the manager helps that at times with the way that he behaves on the touchline. I think maybe in some of his press conferences and some of the stuff that comes out on social media, what's being said and done, I think maybe he adds to that tension a little bit. But the fans are just so desperate for this team to get it over the line because it's been built. There's one thing I always say, and it's a phrase I use quite often, there's one thing that you can give a good manager and a good coach is time. And he's proof of the pudding. Yes, he's had hundreds of millions as well. But if you give a good manager time, you will get a good end product if the manager is capable of doing it.
This is what's coming up for Arsenal. They face Fulham, Atletico Madrid at the Emirates as well, coming up on Tuesday night. And then West Ham, who are, of course, in that relegation battle and need all the points they can get. Already relegated Burnley is their last home game of the season. And then Crystal Palace is where they end the season at Selhurst Park for Manchester City. And we will get to them in just a little bit. We'll talk about them later. They have a couple of games in a very close space of time. I'm wondering from Arsenal, if they are to get it over the line. Rachel, let's get your expertise as a former defender. This defence will really be the thing that stands out, won't it?
It will, and they've got a lot of defensive principles that have been really effective for them. And I think they've had to adjust. They've had times this season when they've had injuries and they've had to put players in different positions. But they've only... We talk about that. They've had 2 wins in the last 8 and they've conceded too many goals recently, and they've had their players available. And I think maybe that is a reflection in the nerves that some of the players are feeling, and whether that's caused by some of the other narrative around it. We're at that stage of the season where maybe, you know, they know there's pressure, there's lots of people saying, do you have it in you to do it? Defensively, though, they've got great players, and I do think that's been a big part of their game, and their defenders impact at the other end of the pitch as well. They've come up with big goals. I think, love him or hate him, you know, Gabriel's been an incredible player for them in the last couple of seasons. And he's probably been the one that's galvanised others around him and really set the bar. But you look at the running, they have to win. Champions League could go either way, but the league games, they should be. If you're going to win the league, you got to win those. You know, look at City have shown us year after year. This end of the season, you play those teams where those teams are in the league. That's got to be 3 points. And if you don't get them, you're asking for a team like City to say thank you very much. If you leave the door open a little bit, they'll storm right through.
You mentioned Gabriel, someone who has also been really outstanding, and perhaps for many is in the conversation for Player of the Season, is the goalkeeper, David Raya. What do you make of him?
Oh, he's been excellent. He's a player that I know extremely well. He was my boot boy at Blackburn, so I had a decent mentor growing up. But when he was younger, he was one of those type of players you didn't see him developing into the top class that he is. He's worked on himself, he's worked on his game, and he's become one of the world's best. And I think the way that the game has changed for the role of a goalkeeper has also very much aided his game. He's an all-round goalkeeper. He's able to play out with his feet. He's able to do the modern part of the game, but he's also able to make wonderful saves like that. He's always had such incredible agility. His shot stopping has never been in question, but his physical size, he's worked on his physical side, he's worked on his body, and he dominates his box. He's able to take crosses. His distribution is second to none, but it's his agility and his ability to keep the ball out of the net. You look at his clean sheets he's had this season. Rachel touched on the Arsenal defence. Yes, they've conceded recently, but they've only conceded 26 Premier League goals this season, which is still the best in the league. And he's a huge, huge part of that. And that's an incredible save, because he can't react until it's cleared the last man. That really is a brilliant save.
Only 11 of those goals conceded have come in their 17 Premier League home games. Just looking at the clean sheets, 16 for David Raya, who, of course, did win the Golden Glove last year jointly with Matt Sells. I'm just wondering, when you watch them play in the way that Arsenal play, in the way that they make the passes in the defence to Raya, from Raya, do you get nervous? Does that go against everything you know as a goalkeeper?
If it was played to me, yeah, I'd be nervous. But I think the game's changed and the role of a goalkeeper's changed. I mean, some of those defenders, if they'd played passes like that under certain managers that I'd played for, the manager would have taken them off. I mean, some of the goalkeepers, what they do Cruyff turns on their own goal line. I mean, if I tried that, you'd have been off back in the day, but that's the way that the game's changed. But they have full faith in the goalkeeper. They know his ability and his quality, and he's always had that as David Raya, the quality that he's got with his feet and the way that he's able to adapt, and he's been a big part of their build-up.
And while Arsenal have struggled creatively, that's not really been the case for Fulham and one Harry Wilson, who seems to only score bangers.
The goals he scores are honestly incredible, and it's one of these, he only seems to score wonder goals, and he's clearly got great vision. I mean, this one is just a lovely, simple finish, and it's just about sweeping it in. But he's already got the awareness to know the keeper's not in the goal. And as you say, it's sort of a highlight reel that's just, you can't believe that these are all goals scored by the same player, all from the same season. And great agility, great, you know, he's a player as well. He doesn't always start every game. He's had to work hard to get himself, you know, now he very much has started a lot of games, but He's been absolutely great for the club. You know,
22 goals in 121 appearances for Fulham. 10 of those goals and 6 of those assists have come this season. He is potentially going to be free at the end of the season. He could be hot property for any club, I think, given what he's done this season. Would want to take him.
Well, I think when you look at that situation for Fulham, and Fulham supporters will be watching that nervously, because not only Harry Wilson, it's the manager as well.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Harry Wilson's future maybe lies in the balance because of what the manager's going to do. There's a lot of uncertainty around that. When players have a relationship with the manager, they want to know what type of direction that the club's going in, who's going to come in and manage the club if he's not necessarily going to be there. And I think that's there's a big time ahead for Fulham and those two, the manager and Harry Wilson, because he's certainly been a big cog this season.
Yeah, they'd be difficult to replace, both of them.
They would be. And I think, you'd have to imagine if they went after a new manager, it would almost be like a reset, because Marco Silva's come in, you can see, over 200 games for the club, and he plays a certain style. And I think you have to respect the fact it's taken him, a large chunk of that time to get them playing the way he wants and getting them to be really effective. And that will be something that, as Paul says, it affects players who will stay. It also affects the club making those decisions too, because they're thinking, if we're about to have a change direction, which seems a little uncertain for everyone right now, it's sort of hard to move forward. Sometimes that affects maybe the side towards the run-in. It'd be a shame to see Fulham kind of just wither away if some of this was just lingering on for players just not being sure of what's happening.
Mikel Arteta didn't do Fulham's case any good this week, because he did an interview and he described him as one of the best managers that he's come up against, and he described his tactical nous and the way that he sets his teams up, and he gave him a lot of praise publicly, so that certainly didn't help Fulham's case.
Well, there is a big one for Mikel Arteta and his Arsenal side against Fulham, while Manchester City make their first visit to Hill Dickinson to face Everton, knowing that any slip-up could be costly in the title race. Here's the managers.
Well, I've always said players want to come and play in Europe. We've got to try and make sure that gives us a possibility. Players want to play in the Premier League, but they also good players want to be involved in European football. So that'll be a challenge for us to try and do that. I found it difficult last summer trying to attract a lot of players because of that. The difference now is, I think Everton have been close this year, much closer to the top end of the league. Most people have had the chance to see the new stadium and full houses in all the games. So from that point of view, there's a lot of things to be positive about.
But one of the first times I remember perfectly traveling to London to meet him in my brother's house, and for the first time I was young. You see his faces in that moment. Now it became there are few players that cannot understand what happened in this period together. He's one of them. So he was the best player by far in the final in Istanbul. That means a huge personality. Now he feels fit. Hopefully he can fight physically the rhythm to be ready. And like Bernardo has said, part of for ourselves, not just me, ourselves is living. So contribution has been massive. So he's an incredible person on and off the pitch as a football player. So really pleased. I'm so incredible. I said Bernardo, grateful to live these many years here with a person like John.
Well, Guardiola unexpectedly turned up at League One Stockport County on Tuesday night, despite it clashing with the Champions League semi-final first leg between PSG and Bayern Munich, and this was his reason.
No, because the day before I saw the calendar, the game PSG Bayern Munich. I said, what a disaster game. So managers are not good, Luis, Vini, so really players. So I decided to go I'm in love with English football, and I went to see Stockport.
Pep Guardiola saying the old stadium was so cool, so British. And it is their first trip to Everton's new Hill Dickinson Stadium. Man City had a wonderful record at Goodison Park, though the last 8 in a row they won.
Yeah, they've had a good record, and they've had a good record against most teams, to be fair. I think you'll like the Hill Dickinson as well. I've been there a couple of times, and it's also very nice. But yeah, I think, it's a game that I think Pep will be confident in. Good result early in the season. Haaland on form, and they're in a good place as well. The run of games they've won is incredible. So it'll be difficult for Everton to contain them. Bit of a difficult run for them recently. But sometimes I think when you play a team that you associate as one of the best teams in the league, sometimes for players, you get a little extra out of them. And I think Everton have good structure, defensively very solid, difficult to break down. And they've got some players themselves, I think Dewsbury Hall and Jai. Beto's come into a bit better form. You know, they've got players that are capable of getting goals. And I think it'll be tough for them, but I think they'll be set up and ready and prepared, and they'll need to be for most of the game if they want anything out of it.
I want to go back to that graphic where we show Arsenal and Manchester City's last couple of games coming up in the run-in, because I think it shows us just how difficult the next period is going to be for Manchester City. They play 4 games in 11 days, having made it through to the FA Cup final now. That's added something to their run-in. I mean, they have the squad to manage that.
They're used to doing it. And he gets his players ready at the right stage of the season. You just have to look at his record in the month of April. He knows what he's doing. It's not his first rodeo, Pep Guardiola. You look at his team selection in recent games, you've not really seen it for most of the season, but he now knows his best 11. He knows his strongest starting 11, and you look at the team selection, it very, very rarely does it vary at this stage of the season. And you look at the games now and you think, OK, well, Arsenal win that, they'll win that. But pressure does funny things to players. Like at the top and the bottom of the league, you know, you look at the fixtures and you think, OK, well, they're going to get 3 points, they'll got to get a point. It doesn't necessarily work out like that because different teams have different things to play for at this stage of the season. We always say Manchester City have been there and they've done it before, and it just looks like that their engines have started. And I use a horse racing analogy to describe Pep Guardiola. If there's a tough race and the jockey's on a horse, he knows when to produce his horse at the right time in the race for the horse to go on and win it. And he's done it year in and year out. And he does that not only with the team selection, but the fitness of the players. You look at the players that he has available to him at the right time of the season, and he's been there and he's done it. And he puts the pressure on Arsenal just at the right time this season.
You're just looking at that run-in for Manchester City, kind of Everton, maybe one of their toughest, if not toughest games left in the Premier League. Would you say perhaps Brentford?
Yeah, potentially. I think also Villa will be potentially tough, but it comes maybe at a good time for Manchester City because it's in and amongst what could end up being the Europa League final. I think in some ways all games are tough at this point when you're fighting for something because there's just an added layer of pressure. And Man City are the team that you would have to say cope with that pressure better than I think I've seen anyone ever do. It's almost like actually that helps so many of their players just find that extra gear. And we already know most of their players in fourth gear is very effective, so to think they can get into fifth and sixth, it's scary what they can do, and we've seen it so many times.
It also feels like the end of an era with John Stones having announced that he'll be leaving the club. I think Silva's going as well.
I think all of these are timed intentionally.
Yeah.
Like motivation factors.
These are the good feels, and we go with something else to play for them.
You've noticed how it just drips out. It doesn't all come out in one go.
Yeah.
First it was John Stones, then it was Silva, and it was just kind of little feel-good factors at the right time. And the most important person in that Manchester City dressing room is the manager, because of the effect that he has on the players. And the players look at him and they go, been here, done it before, he knows what he's doing, we trust him. And the unity in that dressing room will be what potentially gets them over the line in the end. But John Stones will be a huge miss for them. You know, you look at his record there, you look at the trophies that he's won, 6 Premier League titles, I think, that he's had there. And he's been such a key to a lot of things that they've done. His international record is second to none as well. And I think there was a lot of question marks when he went there years ago from Everton about his positional awareness, about his defensive mistakes that he makes leading to goals. I think this was probably the most pivotal moment in his Manchester City career. I think a lot of the City fans will look back on this, how he got it off the line, but how he nutmegs the Liverpool player running in there. I mean, it's such a key stage of the season. I mean, it's an incredible piece of defending, but that's again down to his positional awareness and what he's been a big part of for Pep Guardiola. We talk about his leaders in the dressing room. He's been one of those players that he's relied on to help bed in the new players that come in, the younger players. Kuzanov, for example, this season, he uses John Stones in that type of role that he uses Bernardo Silva.
I just want to go back to something that both of you said, that they are, you know, releasing this information and making these announcements in little bits. Are you, as players then, sitting there going, oh, John Stones has made 293 appearances and won 14 major honours for Manchester City, is leaving. We want to send him off on a good note. Do players actually think about that?
Not maybe from that perspective, but you think of it as your teammate, your friend, someone who, when you joined the club, maybe helped you get to know the way around the place. He maybe put an arm around you when you were, maybe not having a good moment. And that's what builds the bond. And you do have that when someone's been at a club for so long. There'll be so many people in that dressing room, so many people attached to the club, people on the pitch, off the pitch, who have a personal relationship. And when you're a footballer, a massive part of the game is emotional. So when you can emotionally connect to more and more and more things, when you go out and perform, you make sure you absolutely give a little extra. And sometimes at this point in the season, you've played a lot of games, you're fatigued, you've maybe got niggles, you've got to grind through the days to get to the games and tick them off, and you're pushing and pushing and pushing. Sometimes it's just those little extra feel-good moments that you think, I need that, I needed that to just lift me up again to go again today.
Paul, just a quick question then on Everton. Their form recently, only one win in their last 5. They seem to be on a bit of a downward spiral, losing momentum at the wrong time, and now they've got to face Manchester City. The only positive perhaps for them is that Beto might be in contention again?
Yeah, I think scoring goals has been an issue for them this season, whether it be Barry or Beto. You look at the way that their form has actually dropped off. They had a really good spell. They're on the on the peripherals of European football. I think they had a difficult spell at home when they went into the new stadium. But I think under David Moyes, he's a comforting pair of hands, isn't he, for the club? And I think he just seems a right fit. And I think if he's allowed to develop what he's already done, bring in new players in the summer. He was unfortunate with the injury that got to Jack Grealish, but I think Ndai he's a quality player. I think they do have forward quality players. And, not being goalkeeper biased, but I think Jordan Pickford's been outstanding for them.
Well, we have to move on now. We're going to go to a quick break, and after that...
We know the society we live in, it's impossible to avoid it. You do see things, you do read things. Do you try and help your players cope or put in any rules, for example, and say what they can and can't see or listen to?
I tell them, love it.
Really?
I mean, you want to win the Premier League, you want to win the Champions League, what is going to happen? At some point you're going to lose a match, they're going to destroy you. That's it. So love it. You want to be there? Love to be there. When you win, you love it, love it. When you lose or you don't play your best, is it going to be games where you're going to lose the ball? Yeah, you're going to lose the ball. Love it, so you will become better. And that's it. So it's not another way. You want to be at the very top. People are waiting there. It's normal because it's natural. And so it's not like we're going to be only one winner. The rest, what happens? They're not good enough. Come on. I mean, if somebody believes that, then it's something wrong.
Guys, I guess this is a question only, people that have been there and played the game, you know this. I mean, for a Premier League footballer, you're at the height. How do you embrace the noise, and how difficult is it to shut it out at times?
Well, we were lucky we didn't have social media back in the day. You didn't have to.
But even what he's talking about there, he's talking about also on the pitch. He's talking about the Emirates Stadium. Yeah. He's saying that sometimes it can get on the back of the players.
I know it's a different generation, and Kev will probably back me up. But just don't look at it. It's as simple as that. Obviously, back in the day, it was newspapers, and you just don't pay attention. I'm more focused on what I need to do at training, how I need to sleep, prepare my mind, and what I need to eat, and how I'm going to perform. If I have time to do other stuff, then I know my attention is somewhere else. So your attention, if I'm in the Arsenal change room, my attention will be like, I've got to win the next game. And all my focus is in it, my preparation needs to be right. I won't even have time for other stuff. I don't know.
I was going to say, Kev, just quickly, what about in the stadium? So, for instance, playing at St James's Park.
I think that's come a sort of a thing at the moment, isn't it? Because there's been a lot of anxiety around the Emirates at the minute, and when Arsenal are playing, if they're not up 1-0 or 2-0 in after half an hour, things start to get a little bit tetchy, shall we say, and I think that's what this team have got to learn. They've got to learn that they've got to take that responsibility on, and they've got to block out that noise. As Quinton said, the biggest thing, playing at St James's when it's not going so well, or you're losing a game what you're supposed to be winning. You're always going to get the moans and the groans. What these lads have got to do is they've got to step up, and they've got to have them leaders, and they have. Declan Rice is one of them. Who's done it. At West Ham when things weren't great, and he stepped up at times and was counted. So with people like him in the Arsenal team, that's why I have probably faith more than I have in the past. That they've got a real good chance of getting over the line. But what they've got to do is it's got to be now. It's got to be we're in together now. Yeah. let's
Siege
close
mentality.
everything, siege mentality, close everything.
And
But
use all that noise
just
to
those
kind of
against
to get
it.
even more together because everyone's against you. Everyone wants to get Arsenal. Not everyone. Sorry. A lot of people out there don't want Arsenal to win. So you take that, you go, okay, even more, unite even more, and that gives you more energy to come win games.
Well, it's interesting. You know, you mentioned Declan Rice there. Few Arsenal fans, including myself, we've seen or noticed that a change in position between Declan Rice and Martin Zubimendi. Usually, Martin Zubimendi a little bit deeper in the classic 6 role, as someone would say. Declan in that number 8 role. And actually, about that switch, this is what Arteta had to say.
Yes, especially the way they set up and said some things that we wanted to achieve to provoke certain spaces and avoid certain things that Atletico are really good at. And we have the variability to do that with it in a game that it was quite new, but we need to open ourselves a little bit more to certain things because it will create problems to the team, and I think it will unlock certain possibilities that the players have to become even better.
So you might see that more in the Premier League as well.
I feel like he's not giving much away there, but obviously.
I think the biggest thing what I sort of took from that, or when I seen it, the sort of switch, I think because Dec's probably athletically better than the Zubimendi, you know, in terms of they're a counter-attacking team, Atletico Madrid, and play real deep, and he's one who can sort of race back because he is a proper athlete, you know, and he can get to 0 to 60 quite quickly, and he's really good in 1v1 situations, you know, so I think that's what it was, and I feel, and look, Dec done that for us at West Ham for 4.5 years, so it's not something that he hasn't done. Maybe a bit different for Zubimendi being a bit higher, but he's the top class players you're talking about.
I mean, as you say, you've worked with Dec, you've seen him up close, you know, as well. Is his best position as a number 6?
He can play all of them.
Or is it?
Roman, I'll be honest, he, as I said, and I know people sort of sometimes raise their eyebrows when they say it, but he's the closest thing I've seen to Steven Gerrard. You know, Steven could play right back, centre half, centre mid, right wing, left wing. You've seen him play every position. Dec's that, and he won't let you down. He'll be 7 out of 10 in majority of the positions, but when he's in midfield, that's where he's best at, and he can play in either of them and be the 9s and 10s out of 10s what you need. What they need now is for him probably to go another level in the next 4 weeks we've got left of the season.
Quintin, just on Martin Zubimendi really quick, what do you think that says about the manager's trust in him in those big game situations to be that join, you know, that pivot between defence and midfield?
It kind of it shows that they've got freedom to move, because obviously once at the times you got Declan Rice, Zubimendi playing alongside, then Declan Rice got the ball from the back, they build up, he goes high with Odegaard, so there's they're allowed to move in their position. But of course, you mentioned before the son is a 6. Look, some players go through good stages in the career or the season. Declan at the moment, he's your anchor, as Kevin mentioned. He's an absolute beast. The guy can do box to box, and if I'm Arteta, I want him to be my 6.
Yeah.
Because when things break down, I know who's going to make the tackles. So Manuel can link with Odegaard. He's a more forward-thinking player, but he can drop as well to receive the ball. But if I want to choose between those 3, I want Declan Rice to be my 6.
Okay. And on the actual title race, let's have a look at the running that is left, because I mean, when you look at it on paper, there's a big congestion around some of City's fixtures already. Kev, what does that look at? What does that run-in say to you?
Yeah, well, as you said, I think what it does do, it just gives Arsenal a real good opportunity to go 6 points clear, go on now over to you, and then they've got their 2 games, and then West Ham come to the Emirates, you know, and
that's at West Ham.
Yeah, sorry, West Ham. Yeah, I'm actually doing that game.
Yeah, there you go.
I should know that.
Yeah.
But the Fulham game after the Atletico Madrid Champions League. It's a big one, Kev.
Yeah, exactly. And then and these are what they've got to take into consideration, which we never would have probably last year and the year before with Man City, because we thought, they're just going to top it off, they'll knock it off, they'll knock that one off. We'll just probably concentrate on what Arsenal are doing. I think what Arsenal have got to do is keep asking the question to Manchester City. So tomorrow's a big one. Go out and win it. Go and win it. Then wait and see. Sit back, over to you, and then be ready. Then be ready for the next one at West Ham away, which is a tough one again.
I think if Arsenal get through Atletico Madrid, if they can get, meaning beat Atletico Madrid, that will give them so much confidence to go win this Premier League. That's the big one for me. Okay. You beat Atletico Madrid, you can win the league.
Yeah,
got to win tomorrow first. Can